Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the July 18th Board of County Commissioners meeting. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, first thing on our agenda are the minutes. Do we have any additions or corrections?
No.
Okay.
I move to approve the proceedings of the Board of County Commissioners for Montezuma County for Tuesday, July the 11th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the proceedings of the Board of Commissioners, Montezuma County, July 11th, 2023. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, next up is planning, and I see you're already seated at the table. All right, with that, we have a public hearing, and Kim, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Candelaria.
Here.
Commissioner Lindsay.
Here.
Commissioner Copenhaver.
Here.
Administrator Anderson.
Here.
Attorney McLaren.
Here.
And Kim Purcell, Montezuma County Clerk and Recorder. Notice is hereby given that the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners will hold a public hearing for review and determination of a proposed high-impact permit application submitted by Silvina, Guerreiro, Moore, and Jeremy Moore on property located at 7134 Road 41, Mancos, Colorado, consisting of 3.71 acres, more or less. Located south of Highway 160, east of Road 41, situated in Section 4, Township 35 North, Range 13 West, N.M.P.M. The hearing will be held Tuesday, July 18, 2023 at 9 a.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room, Montezuma County Administrative Offices, 109 West Main, Cortez, Colorado. Interested persons may attend and give input. Information may be obtained from the Planning Office online services at https://co-montezuma-co.smartgovcommunity.com, public home. You may also contact the Planning Department at 970-565-2801 with questions. Dated this 13th day of June, 2023, Kim Purcell, Clerk, Board of County Commissioners, Montezuma County, Colorado. Published in the Journal on Wednesday, June 28th, 2023.
All right, thank you, Kim. Don, do you have the applicants?
I do, and I also have an objection packet to distribute to you.
Okay.
Please come up.
Okay, before we even start, when you want to speak, please turn on that mic and get it just as close to your mouth as you can so that everybody in the room and or on TV can hear us. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, Don, would you give us an overview?
Yes, the Moores are applying for a high impact permit for a wedding venue, social gathering spot on their property on Road 41 in Weber Canyon. They've got a presentation. They have they revised their permit from the original plan, which was for short-term rentals and a larger operation. Now they have cut that back. It's a seasonal wedding venue, and then the rest of it would be open yearly for small gatherings. They can explain that further, but that's pretty much what the application is. They also have a PowerPoint presentation when you get through questions and discussions.
Okay. I'll go ahead and give you the opportunity to speak.
Okay, real quick before we start, we were just wondering if Commissioner
Copenhaver was planning to recuse himself from the project due to the fact that he is, we consider him a neighbor, and we just didn't know if that would create any personal conflict for him.
I can't see any personal conflict for him right now. I mean,
Okay.
we're all neighbors in this community somewhere at some point in time.
Perfect.
So unless,
Commissioner, do you see any reason that you wouldn't be able to be fair and impartial in this?
I'm probably impacted as much as anybody else up and down that road, if that's what you're worried about.
I'm not necessarily worried. I just want to know from you whether you feel like, I mean, I think it's important to state for the record whether you feel like you can make a fair and impartial decision based on what's in the land use code and apply that.
I can recuse myself. I don't have any problem with that. Because I know all this facility and, I mean, as far as the area and everything else goes, I don't know.
Wh-
I mean, I've never met these people in my life, so I don't.
Where is your property in relation to,
I live at 7388 Road 41. There's actually 2 residents between me and them. I'm just north of their place by 2 residents.
okay.
And I actually farm the little place that's right straight across the road from their place, so.
So I don't think the fact that you live nearby is necessarily a conflict. I mean, the reality is in a community like this, as Commissioner Candelaria said, there's oftentimes going to be proximity between a commissioner and a land use project. But I do think that as a commissioner rendering a decision in this sort of matter, I think that you've got to feel comfortable that you can make a fair decision based on the provisions that are in the land use code and apply those fairly and impartially. And so that's really a question that you have to be able to answer for yourself. And if you feel like you can be unfair or fair and impartial, then I think there's no need to recuse yourself.
I think maybe I should just recuse myself and get out and just recuse myself from it,
Okay,
okay?
fair enough.
Because that'll be best.
Okay.
I'll just do that. Do you want me to?
be right back. Okay. We will proceed.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy's going to start us off, and then we will go through our presentation of our project we're presenting here today.
Okay.
We just want to thank everyone for coming out. We're presenting our proposal for an event venue on Road 41. We had our first hearing back in November, and since then we made some changes to our application and received a unanimous approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission last month. We're here with our planning consultant, Tiffany Rhodes. We're going to have her introduce the proposal, and then Sylvie and I will jump back in and talk about some things after that.
Okay.
Good morning. Once again, my name is Tiffany, and I work as a consultant with the private property owners to help them get through county permitting processes. I started working with Jeremy and Sylvie after their first November, I believe, appearance at the Planning and Zoning meeting. And that didn't go as well as they had hoped, so we regrouped and built a business plan and improved our project description details. And we just want to let you know that we are presenting here today with a PowerPoint slide because you might not be familiar with our property. And let me just jump in. So we are presenting a project to you that is their ultimate goal of turning 2,200 square feet of their 3,500 square foot home into a community event center. The property is a little less than 4 acres with about a 200-foot driveway that leads to a 2-story barn-dominium type building. They plan to host small events such as micro weddings, birthday parties, funeral celebrations, and life celebration of life services, private dinners, fundraisers, just small events that gives the opportunity for the community to host. I'm already on slide 2, so here you can see the interior of the barn-dominium. Downstairs, we have like a barn area, and the upper level room, it has a big high ceiling with the cathedral type ceilings that provide their areas for the events. Next slide, please. The current application proposes that the wedding season run from May to October. The micro weddings would be a maximum of 2 times per week, and the other community events will be limited to 2 times per month. The focus is to target the micro event industry. All events will have a maximum capacity of 60 people. We don't expect them to be all 60 people, but we are guaranteeing that all events will close no later than 10 p.m. Next slide, please. So I just want to take a quick minute. I know you guys weren't at the original P&Z, but our major changes to our application was initially we were looking for the commercial zoning. We are no longer looking for that. We found that it was able to be addressed through a seasonal accessory use permit. There was some definitions of music festival, outdoor concert, and short-term rentals. Some were modified, some were deleted. And then we also have built a business plan that has a lot of more detail and mitigation. Next slide, please. So when we first came before the P&Z, commercial zoning was going to be a big impact to the area. And so we modified our whole business plan and reduced it so that the commercial zoning was no longer necessary. We worked with planning and we cleared up some of the definitions and some of the details of our application and recognized we only needed the high impact special use permit for the seasonal use. Next slide, please. It was never our intention to be this large outdoor venue for music festivals. We are looking at more of an intimate facility, and we are also specifying in our application that there will be no outdoor music. It will only be allowed inside where we can control it with decibel meters and decibel limiters. Next slide, please. So as this, I guess we're going on like 8 or 9 month process, Jeremy and Sylvie have gone through and really thought through every detail of what they were proposing. They have come up with mitigation plans regarding traffic, noise, light pollution. They've added chaperones to part of their business plan. They are thinking in the future as far as like improvements to the site as well. And I'm going to pass it over to Sylvie so she can detail some of these mitigations and part of their business plan.
Thank you, Tiffany. Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. So for noise mitigation, next slide, please. I wanted to talk about the 2 spaces the events will take place in. the downstairs and the upstairs. For the downstairs space, this is where we'd host dinners and cocktail hours. Live music will only be allowed if it can be under 70 decibels, and the total limit allowed with the crowd noise will be 80 decibels, which is average for restaurants and bars. As far as the doors in this space goes, the garage door that you see in this photo, that will always remain closed, so we don't project noise into the valley. We also heard feedback about open windows at the last hearing, so I just want to reiterate that our north-facing windows will remain closed at all times also. On the south end of the barn, there are 2 barn doors that would stay open if the weather allows for it. Next slide, please. Next up, the upstairs space. This is where we'll hold the main ceremony and then flip it to host a dance reception afterwards. This room is insulated, and the maximum decibel limit here will be 100, although most, if not all events, will never reach that high. That level will actually damage hearing, but we wanted to test our maximums. Again, I want to note that all windows in this room will be closed at all times. We do have a very powerful AC system in the house, and we will never need to open these windows unless there is an emergency. Next slide, please. So based on those 2 scenarios, downstairs at 80 and with the barn doors open, and upstairs at 100, we were able to test how far the noise actually traveled. We hired Cottonwood Consulting, and they used their calibrated decibel reader to not only measure levels at our property lines, but also at 3 of our immediate neighbors' driveways. The results are shown in this graph on the left here, the blue correlating to the downstairs test, and the pink is the upstairs test. As you can see, we are well within the land use code decibel limits for all tests. And they concluded, and I quote, "The results of the study indicate that the noise from the property does not cause a significant increase in overall decibel levels in the project area, and that noise from passing cars and barking dogs may result in higher decibel readings than music from the property." I also want to note that this test was done in February, but it wasn't after a fresh snowstorm. So at the time of this test, the snow had compacted down quite a bit. And there's a cited study down there on the bottom footnote, which outlines the validity of the tests under similar conditions. Regardless, we do plan on measuring decibels throughout our operation in the summer and fall, and we're ready to adjust the decibel limits, like if we find out new data. Next slide. Okay, back to the results. To give perspective on what these numbers mean, the average taken from all our neighbors' driveways was 37.4, which is equivalent to a light rain and not discernible from ambient noise in the valley. I was actually with Emma and her assistant from Cottonwood Consulting during this test. It was a super clear day, no wind at all, and I could not hear the music whatsoever. Next slide, please. Here is how far we are from our closest neighbors. 543, 635, 815 feet respectively. That's a football field and a half away from our nearest neighbor's residence. And here's a view of our place from the road next to them. Our venue is nestled behind the trees under the arrow there. Next slide. Okay, moving on to traffic mitigation, because this is a big one. We will determine the need for our shuttle service prior to booking any event. This requirement will be based on 2 things: the number of guests that we have and the type of event that it is. Next slide, please. So here we have 2 scenarios. We have self-parking for smaller community gatherings or other events, which I'll go into, that will require a shuttle service. There will never be an open invite to any of these events. Next slide. The first scenario is limited self-parking. So for smaller events that don't require a shuttle, we will only have 15 parking spots, which will be issued along with tickets to the event. So we never go over the 15 vehicle round trip limit. Vendor vehicles will be considered, and available parking goes down if vendors go up. The math problem. So next slide, please. So the second scenario will require a shuttle service for all events that involve alcohol consumption or would otherwise exceed the 15 vehicle round trip limit. So depending on the number of scheduled pickups and drop-offs, we can adjust the number of vendor parking to meet the limit. So for example, we have a 15 passenger van. So to mitigate traffic for, say, a 50 to 60 person event, we could do 5 pickups, 6 drop-offs, and still have up to 4 vendors self-park, 15 round trips. Or for a 30-person event, we could do 3 pickups, 4 drop-offs, and up to 8 vendors can self-park. Again, total 15 round trips. So we'd replicate this exercise before we book any event to determine the best approach to create as minimal traffic impact as possible. It's also worth noting, we did call the Road and Bridge Department, and even though they didn't have any data on Road 41 at the time of our conversation, they said even with 20 round trips, we would not have a significant impact on that road. If you look at it spread across the whole month, if we had a maximum of 2 weddings per week, around 8 per month, and the 2 community events at our maximum capacity and threshold limit, it would equate to about 5 vehicle round trips per day. And we feel like that's important to keep in mind. Next slide. Next, I want to talk about parking and light pollution. At our open house, one of our neighbors mentioned that our current parking area, which is this barren part of our land, was concerning since that's very close to them. So they can see the headlights and have a very clear view of it. So we listened to that feedback, and we are now proposing a new parking area that's in a more wooded location away from them. Here's a photo of that view from that new spot, as well as a bird's eye view of that parking area. As you can see, there is no sight of neighbors, and the trees would block any glare from headlights. Next slide. Here's the photo. Excuse me. Here's a photo again from the road and how hidden our whole operations would be. Next slide. Next up is fire mitigation. We live on site, so we take fire dangers very seriously. We have a very clear and strict fire mitigation plan in place, including having a designated smoking area and banning all fireworks, sparklers, fire pits, and campfires. This strict plan is in place despite a professional assessment by the Wildlife Adaptive Partnership, who waived that requirement. Next. We will also be requiring an on-site chaperone. This person would be in charge of overall supervision for every event. So everything from making sure noise limits are being met to seeing that the shuttle service is being used appropriately and that there is no unauthorized parking on the county road and everything in between. We're making sure this is a key component in our contracts as well, so we are able to enforce all our mitigations. Next. So we will be requiring bathroom trailers for all events, which will be serviced as needed until we upgrade our septic system. Licenses will also follow catering businesses and bartenders. Next slide. So in addition to all of our mitigation plans, we're also planning to upgrade parts of our space. First being, we want to insulate the entire downstairs stable area, which will help with sound even more. We will also plan to add an outdoor fenced-in smoking area and have clearly marked pathways and build fencing to keep guests contained and away from the property line. We'll also add a gate to the entrance of our driveway to prevent additional cars from just stopping by. And we'll also post no parking signs along our driveway to maintain clear access. So the only recommendation we had from the P&Z was to add an event in progress type of sign on the northbound side of Road 41, which we will add to this list as well.
So I want to talk about our neighborhood outreach for a minute. After our initial hearing, we met with our closest neighbors and we went door to door to speak with with more than 30 people who'd signed an opposition letter. We also invited them to an open house meeting at our home where people could come and see our venue and learn more about the mitigations that we'd had come up with. At that meeting, we presented the new information on our proposal, and we also listened to feedback and responded to their comments. We aim to be an active part of this community, and we will always continue to improve our operations to minimize our footprint. Next slide, please. We think this venue would be a boon to the local economy, starting right in Weber Canyon. The events would support local products. We'd use local meat and produce. We'd use local vendors like wedding photographers, florists, and caterers. And as you're all aware, it's difficult for small businesses to make it in Mancos, especially when the tourist season dies down. But with all the traffic we'd bring into Mancos, the positive effects from that would be felt by restaurants, motels, retail shops, etc. And we'd create employment opportunities as well. We'd need a shuttle driver, chaperone, staffing, all that stuff. And in general, the wedding industry is pretty big, but most wedding vendors in this area end up having to leave the county in order to find their business, and that's why they usually work over in Durango or Telluride. So having a venue here keeps those services here inside the county, which obviously is a good thing. In fact, we ended up getting over 150 people, including 62 businesses, to sign a letter of support for us, from neighbors in Weber to businesses in Farmington, Durango, Hesperus, all over the area. I'd also like to address, next slide, please. I'd also like to address some of the feedback that we've gotten so far. We've heard from some people saying this type of thing just doesn't belong here, meaning it doesn't belong in an agricultural setting. Understandably, one of the main purposes of the land use code is to protect what's referred to as the rural character of the county. But if we're going to talk about what does or doesn't belong in Weber, I think it's fair to say event barns like ours have existed here since more than 100 years ago. In fact, not 50 yards from our barn, there's a monument to one of the most important event spaces in the history of Montezuma Valley, and that was the original Weber Hall. It was used for weddings and events, and it stood as an event center for the Mormon community for more than 3 generations. So these rural event centers, they don't really get any mention in the land use code, and they're not like most commercial operations. They're not like a big housing development or a warehouse with big trucks going up and down the road, such as the J. Stringer case that everybody loves to bring up. It's not like a condo or a subdivision or an RV park, biker rally, music festival. It's not like any of that stuff. It's just a barn off a county road that fits right into the area, and we just want to host small events that have a rural experience that you can't find inside the business district. Next slide, please. So these types of venues, they exist in counties all over the place, and it's nothing new. I think the reason they're often allowed in ag zones is probably because the unique nature of these event centers. They're just not like other commercial operations that don't fit in rural areas. The other phrase we hear a lot is there's just no need for it, and actually I think there is a need for it, and you can see that just from the amount of inquiries that we've already gotten from the community so far. Without even being operational, people in Mancos have already reached out to us about hosting their events, from funerals to weddings to birthday parties, agricultural seminars, vocational seminars. And I think the reason we've already gotten so much interest is because none of the other venues here are quite like ours. To be honest, the event spaces that are already here just don't have the attention to detail that people want. Next slide, please. The last thing I want to mention is just how invested in the community we are. I grew up here in Cortez, and I come from a very big family. We've been in this area for 7 generations now, and we live all over this area, including Cortez, Mancos, Dolores, and Durango too. Sylvie volunteers with the school and also the creative district, and I've got family in the school, so we go to all sorts of high school events, and we have plans to raise our own children here as well. This is our home, and I guarantee I care about the tranquility of this place just as much as anyone here. I have some background in preservation. I spent a large part of my younger years as a cave guide teaching people about fragile environments, and it's one of my core values to keep a small footprint, and that includes my neighborhood as well. We're not out to build some big, loud, crazy venue. We just want to host small, quiet events that showcase the beauty of our barn, and I hope that you can trust us to do that. We appreciate the unanimous support that we received from the P&Z department, and we respectfully request your approval as well. Thank you.
thank you for your time. As we go into questions and public comment, I just want to go to the next slide as a summary for easy reference. Thank you.
Okay, Don, anything else that you want to add?
Oh, I think they pretty much covered
Okay. All right.
everything.
Commissioner Lindsay, do you have any questions at this time?
No, not now.
Okay. All right, well, at this time then, I'm going to open this application up for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this application, please come forward to the podium. State your name and address for the record, and you may address the board. We are going to start with 3 minutes, and if it goes a little bit too long, I will reduce that to 2. So comment is open at this point in time.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for that presentation. My name is Clara Martinez, and I live at 7340 Road 41, 2 driveways away from the venue. One of my biggest concerns about the discussion of this project is that the owners won't even be there during the event. So they're having chaperones, and I really appreciate all of this mitigation, but it looks like they will have someone else there and can escape the hullabaloo or the noise and that kind of thing.
We'll be there.
But we won't be able to escape the neighbors. You know, we don't have another place to go and to have chaperones stay at our house while there's stuff going on just down the road. So I am not in favor of this because I don't really feel like it is a family neighborhood thing. It feels like a business, and the owners will leave as partygoers come, and when it's all over, they'll come back to their sweet and calm reality that we all love. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I will give you an opportunity to rebut anything at the end, so just write them down and then we'll go from there. But this is public comment, so I need to let the public speak. Okay, thank you. Next.
Okay, hi, my name's Jessica McIntyre. Thank you for listening today. I live at 7294 Road 41. I'm directly north of the proposed wedding venue. We moved our lives to Weber Canyon to live and raise our kids in the rural area on a small family orchard that we are restoring and selling apples from. We love the community, the town, the school, and the rural life that we live in Weber Canyon. It is our little slice of heaven, and we pour our hearts and money into it. The idea of a wedding venue operating next door 5 to 6 months of the year is heartbreaking. We will experience each event as the proposed wedding building is 60 feet from our property line, 500 feet from our house, and people talking, laughing, yelling, vehicles coming and going, mobile trailer doors closing for the bathrooms, music through the open windows on the other sides of the house. We will hear it all, and those sounds were not included in the sound test that was completed by Conwood Consulting, just music inside. I provided a packet here that includes a petition to preserve the rural way of living and not allow the precedent of high-impact commercial business to operate on an ag and residential zoned area. On the top, you'll see a map that provides a visual of the locations of the residents and constituents that have signed the petition opposing HIP 06 2022. Under that, we provide a list of the people who signed, including their addresses. 265 people signed in the petition in Montezuma County. Of that, 42 are on Road 41, 23 on Road G, and 12 on Road H and H25. This is 77 residents in the Weber Canyon area that will feel the impact of this commercial event venue. I want to note that in the P&Z meeting, 140 or so signatures were brought by the applicants, Only 62 were in the county, 12 didn't have locations, and only 9 were located in the impact area. The packet also provided by Don Haley, Director Don Haley, includes the objection letter that we put together with multiple neighbors. There's a folder in there that includes all of the signatures. They're both online and handwritten, scanned copies for you. Attachments are provided in the objection letter that we provided, that Director Don Haley provided, that give a visual aspect of the property and events. In attachment D on page 35 through 38, you can see how close the wedding venue is to our property. Our property runs between the applicant's property and Road 41. The applicants have a great idea, and they've clearly spent a lot of time and have a beautiful space and can market it well. But it's still not zoned commercial, and it's not appropriate for a high-impact blanket permit on an ag and residential zone property. The thought of living next to a for-profit destination wedding venue is devastating to our happiness and our livelihoods. I want to thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Scott Midgley. My wife, Christine Swank, and I live at 8370 Road 41 in Mancos. We wish to express our strong opposition to the approval of the above-referenced high-impact permit application. As the owners and operators of a number of businesses and investors in a large number of both commercial and residential properties over the past 40 years, we are confirmed and committed capitalists who believe in the American free enterprise system. We have a significant investment in properties located in and near the town of Mancos. I practiced real estate and business law for the past 42 years and have very much enjoyed assisting clients in those areas. We support existing and new businesses and encourage others who are so inclined to form their own businesses in their individual pursuits of the American dream. However, we also recognize that from time to time, we as a society on local and regional levels find it advisable and appropriate to establish reasonable regulations concerning the location and manner of operation of business enterprises. The land use code adopted by Montezuma County is a good example of these land use and zoning regulations. Historically, the land use code has served Montezuma County well and has operated to preserve and protect the rural character of Montezuma County as and where needed, which is one of its stated primary goals. In our view, the subject application for the high-impact use permit to operate a commercial wedding and event venue is nothing more than a thinly disguised attempt under the term high-impact use permit to pursue a spot commercial zoning designation for authorization to conduct a full-scale commercial enterprise that otherwise is not permitted and should not be permitted in the subject location. It is an attempt, whether unwitting or otherwise, to skirt the Montezuma County Land Use Code and Colorado law to obtain the necessary approval to operate a commercial business within the current residential agribusiness zoning designation of the lands located in the Weber Canyon area. In my opinion, the high-impact use permit was never intended to provide blanket authorization to conduct a continuing stream of multiple events, commercial or otherwise. Rather, it was intended solely as a process to obtain approval to conduct a single high-impact event. The approval of the subject high-impact permit to conduct multiple commercial events on an ongoing basis will have long-standing negative impacts on those of the Weber Canyon residents who operate farms, ranches, and related agribusinesses and who otherwise enjoy the peaceful rural way of life in the Weber Canyon area. The proposed high-impact use would not provide any net benefit to the neighborhood or to the persons who reside in the area surrounding the subject property. In fact, the overall impact of the proposed use, if the subject application is approved, will be overwhelmingly negative and will detract from the rural character and way of life within the impacted area. Therefore, Chris and I strongly urge you to deny the pending application, thereby preserving and protecting that rural character and way of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Charles Jeter. My residence is in California. However, I grew up and I spent time in Weber Canyon. Is this turned on?
Yep.
Okay. I grew up and spent time in Weber Canyon in the 70s and 80s. And I'm here speaking on behalf of the entire county, the impact of the entire county. I belong to the Four Corners, the gun club right down the road on 160. And so I believe there's a significant economic impact that we're not seeing at the 50,000 mile view. Okay, so I'm gonna explain that. Second thing is I actually happen to have a background as an acoustic analysis expert, so a subject matter expert in the way of dealing with acoustic transmission through air and water. And I actually didn't know that I would need this, but this right here is just a documentation of my time in the military as a aviation warfare systems operator for acoustic analysis. So I'm only saying that because there may be an issue here where I may have to go into specifics to go ahead and tell you the sound profiles can change. The only thing you really need to know is that it is on my DD-214. People in the community know me, they've seen me before, and I can go ahead and provide that if you guys need it. But I was for 6.5 years in the military with that specific event. I also think it's important because we have 2 people making a decision instead of 3, and that creates its own complexity, okay? With that said, my name is Charles Jeter, and I currently reside in California. However, I have many dealings in the area. What people need to know about the rural character of that county is that orchard that you mentioned, I ate homemade ice cream there for the first time in my life in the 1970s, just so people know. The Halls down the road used to have a dairy. We used to buy raw milk there back in the 1970s and 80s. The Deckers lived right down the road. One of my classmates in 2nd and 3rd grade lived right on Road G. I think he was about 2 houses down from the intersection. I had other friends of mine. I played in that area my entire life. So the name Copenhagen, although he's not here, in 2nd and 3rd grade, we wanted to be him. Okay, that name, Copenhagen, I don't know if it was him or one of his relatives, but he was one of the Blue Jays that played on the Mancos team. Okay? The issue is, I'm not in favor of it. The 50,000-foot view is of the type of jobs created and the impact to the area in all. What type of work long-term is generated, what type of revenue stays in Montezuma County versus can be exported, that's important. And the unfortunate thing, and I like these people very much, I've seen them at the local areas, this encourages speculative property acquisition in Montezuma County, and that is the majority of the problem I have with the proposal. It's not about them, it's not about the location. However, I can go into detail about acoustic transmission through air if anybody wants to know that. My recommendation, if it is adopted, is that it's a slow rollout. You need to study this and make a decision in 3 to 5 years after seeing a track record of performance and also economic indicators in the county. Are other people buying property, and are they trying to flip these things and turn them into some type of commercial revenue? So to go ahead and object, the Mormon community is not commercial. I'm not Mormon, but I grew up with them. I was in PAC 533, which was at Mancos. Okay, it was at the Mormon LDS church there. So they're standardized a lot like the Amish are. So that structure you see has many multiple purposes. The issue is that if you're bringing more commercial design in, it encourages that negative economic impact due to the speculation. And the commercial applications are good for supplementing existing operations. And there's actually I think people, so I don't know if you want me to testify on anything else on that.
Your 3 minutes is up, and I have a lot of people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you want, you can just kind of line up over here. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Renee Feigenbaum. I want to share that my husband and I met in Mancos. Not too many people can say that. We both grew up in big cities and ended up in Mancos separately, seeking the mountains, rural living, and our passions for agriculture. This is where we chose to share our lives and raise our family. We own a 10-acre farm on 41269 Road G, about 1,800 feet from the proposed wedding venue site. We raise Navajo churro sheep, egg layers, and meat birds. I have been a farmhand for many of the farmers in this valley. We love rural living. I love long walks on our road with my kids, saying hi to people I know, which is all the time, watching our neighbors' peacocks wander up our driveway, and trading for veggies with my other neighbors. I have a strong passion for agriculture, and I strongly disagree with commercial businesses operating in agricultural zones, changing the cultural landscape, and essentially rezoning under the pretense of a high blanketed impact permit. I also want to add my own personal experience regarding the impact of noise. My husband and I sit in our orchard often during the summer, and our neighbor, Mike Nolan, can hear our conversations at a low volume clearly from 800 feet away, and he once even chimed in via text as a joke to add to our conversation. My husband and I also play acoustic music together outside often in the summer. Many of our neighbors hear us, and those who enjoy will purposely sit outside to listen, anywhere from 300 to 900 feet away. I can hear music from Cottonwood Park in town at my house, as well as in town when the N.M.P Music Festival happens in Mancos. When Scott and Margaret had their wedding up the road, close to the proposed wedding venue site, we heard the music and chatter all night. During a conversation at the open house in January 2023, Jeremy mistook Scotty Cox's dogs for Jessica and Nate's dogs because of how close the barking sounded. My point is, a decibel meter reading does not adequately describe how sound travels in this valley. The sound tests the applicants had done did not include people outside talking, laughing, going in and out of the venue, which you cannot control, cars, which we will see, and I can see and hear from the road at my house, open doors or windows. The testing was not done along the applicant's property line in the area closest to the neighbor's property, which is 60 feet, and decibel levels would likely exceed threshold standards during an actual summer event. This test does not mitigate sound in any way. The concern of noise is a serious threat to the peaceful way of life my family has sought in this valley. And ask yourself, is passing this permit to benefit one business worth compromising the well-being and way of life for a whole rural agricultural community? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Hope Woods, and I live here in Cortez at 620 Baker Avenue. But I have a letter here from Gary Vandenberg at 2595 Aurora Drive in Durango. To the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners, as a local vendor, I know how hard it is for some of my clients who are having smaller weddings to find a venue that is affordable, yet also equipped for their needs on their wedding day. So many vendors cater to couples looking to have 100+ guests because that is more profitable for them. Without micro-destination spots like Weber Hall, many customers are forced to move their venues to backyards, friends' ranches, or even worse, not in the area at all. Weddings are an important and critical portion of our economy, not only for vendors who would be supporting the couple at the venue, but also because of all the guests visiting from out of town who need accommodations, food, lodging, and might even spend time participating in local tourist attractions available in Mancos, Cortez, and Durango. Finally, when people are using an official venue like this, and as opposed to a simple backyard wedding, that typically means that they're being served alcohol by licensed vendors who are ensuring that people do not drink beyond reason, and also that minors are not being served. Thank you. I have another letter here from Jake and Nicole Thompson, owners of Global Kitchen at 41900 US 160 in Mancos, to whom it may concern. Through this note, we would like to express our support for the Weber Hall. For a business like ours, a small restaurant, having the choice to bring customers to the Weber Hall for dinners made a huge difference between being able to keep our doors open or closed. We believe that with clear boundaries and respect, Silvina and Jeremy will be able to both honor their neighbors' requests and run the Weber Hall as a small venue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And commissioners, just real quick, that public comment came from letters from outside vendors. They're obviously not here today. I think in evaluating those letters, I think you take into account that those individuals aren't here and what difference that makes and what kind of weight you give to those letters. It's really for you to evaluate.
And I think in these packets, I think we have a lot of those. I remember seeing some of those names. So. Go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Marcia Goodwin. I live at 8966 Road 41. And I'd like to read a letter from Tom Weaver at 8950 County Road 41. Dear County Commissioners, please accept this letter in opposition to the reconsideration of High Impact Permit 06-2022. It would appear that since this was originally a request for commercial zoning that was ultimately turned down, it now comes back as an end run, if you will, to get commercial zoning through the high impact permit process. It is my understanding that a high impact permit is intended for one event for one time. Subsequent events would require another high impact permit. Please vote against this permit request. Sincerely, Tom Weaver. And for the record, I just wanted to comment that for County Commissioner Copenhaver have to recused himself is like 1,000 words, as far as I'm concerned. And I find it very interesting that anyone who doesn't live on this road could even begin to have their opinion weighed in if they aren't, you know, especially people from Durango and, you know, talk about businesses from all over the place. They're not there. They don't live there. They're not impacted. And that's what this is about, pretty much. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Shelly Rutter. My husband and I actually met here and decided to raise our family here. He comes from New York. I come from North Dakota. I just want to pose a question to everybody that's in opposition to Jeremy and Sylvie's event center. How many times do you have an event, a 50-year birthday party, a 50-year anniversary, a baby shower that you want just a beautiful, bespoke, like Jeremy mentioned, attention to detail. You want a beautiful setting to celebrate those small, intimate gatherings. And I haven't heard anyone mention that. I know that we all have those events in our lives. And this event center is offering that to all of us, each and every one of us. I'm here to actually read some letters for people that are in support of their event center, but I just had to say that. And as a young family trying to make it in Montezuma County, my personal family, we need these things to go through because it is the livelihood for young people. It might not look like livelihoods of the past. It might look different, but it is providing for families in our community. I am writing to support Silvina and Jeremy's application for a high-impact special use permit. This application has drawn a lot of attention from the community, which I understand. We all love the Mancos Valley. We want it to remain the small, close-knit, quirky, rural community that we all know and love. I believe that if this property is granted the permit applied for, it will only emphasize the elements that we all love about the Mancos Valley without creating problems for the immediate community. Why do I think this will be a boon for the area? Mancos is a vibrant community full of music, activities, blossoming nonprofits. While we have some amazing local venues to host events, many of these are centered around restaurants and bars. There's very limited venues where being around alcohol is not a prerequisite. Weber Hall will help fill this gap. Why do I think the immediate community will not experience negative impacts? I've lived here for 5 years within a 0.5 mile distance as the crow flies from Willowtail Springs, which also hosts micro weddings. Given the precautions around both noise and traffic that Willowtail takes, I've never been negatively impacted. From my own experience, I can assure those concerned the noise and traffic precautions that Silvina and Jeremy are proposing will work. This is from Jane Chipman, 38355 Road K.7 Mancos. Next one is, we write this letter in enthusiastic support of Jeremy and Silvina Moore's high-impact special use permit application for their proposed wedding Weber Hall community venue. That was from Dr. Charles Riggs and Blythe Morrison.
Do you want to leave those and submit them with the clerk? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christopher Closter, and I live at 41263 Road G in Mancos. And, good morning, Commissioners, and I appreciate your service to the community. I dropped a letter off yesterday to your office, but I thought just for the record I would come today, and if it's all right, I'm not sure if all the Commissioners saw it, so if I'll just read that letter if that's okay. Dear Commissioners, I'm writing to request that you reject the high-impact permit submitted by the Guerreiros, which would allow a new event facility on Road 41 in rural Montezuma County. I'd like to share with you the email I sent to the applicant on the 5th of June because I think it summarizes the reasons for my opposition. I don't take my opposition lightly. I believe in a live and let live attitude when folks but when folks propose actions which I believe will lessen our community, I must stand with my neighbors in opposition. The email I sent on June 5th till Silvina reads, "Hi Silvina, I thank you for your honest and informative response. It is appreciated. To be honest with you, I was surprised that you were wanting to host 2 events per weekend. I thought it was 2 events per month. So that's the reason I put that in there. That number of potential events is bigger than I had hoped. I try to be an honest and straightforward as a person as I can, so I just want to tell you up front, that's bigger than I can support. I don't fault anyone for trying to have a home-based business, but in my mind, what you're thinking is bigger than running a home-based business. Everyone has their opinion on that, so I realize we might disagree, and that's okay. For what it's worth, I do want to tell you why I can't support your permit. When we moved here 25 years ago, the traffic on 41, and especially G, was minimal. Our kids used to ride their bikes on Road G up to 41 so they could coast down the hill. Neither 41 or G was paved. Obviously, over the years, more people have moved to the valley and the traffic has increased. Some would argue a lot, maybe even me. But that's just life. Nobody gets to keep places to themselves, and I don't fault any of my neighbors for wanting to move to this valley. It's a lovely, bucolic place to live and raise a family. I'm not one of those that wants to shut the door behind me. That said, if I had grandkids, I wouldn't let them ride the bikes to the top of the hill any longer. Those days are over. But I do hope to keep the valley a place where Polly, my wife, can ride her bike to town without feeling like she's endangering herself. When people move to the valley and traffic increases, that's just the nature of progress. I may not like it, but it is the way of things. What you are proposing takes one of the negatives of progress, traffic, and supercharges it. 1 new resident will now create the traffic of 10 new residents. Having neighbors can and does come with positives. The additional traffic is not one of them. You are asking to radically amplify the biggest negative impact of having new neighbors. Now when Polly rides her bike to town, she has to navigate. Have you guys seen my letter? Otherwise,
We've all read your letter.
Okay.
It was dropped off yesterday. All 3 commissioners have read your letter.
I thank you.
So we do have it for the records.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie McClure, and I live at 6554 Road 41. On your map, I'm this green dot just south of the event venue. I live in Weber Canyon in Montezuma County because I want to be part of and do what I can to preserve the rural character here. We moved out of a community in Oregon because the rural character was rapidly disappearing. I have 2 main concerns. The first is the spot zoning, and the second is the safety related to traffic. I'll just ditto what Scott has said and some others have said about the high impact permit kind of circumventing the rules and burdens with rezoning and basically achieving commercial land use. I can't figure out how it's different, but I'm not a pro. On safety related to traffic, there are 2 areas in the packet that talk about this. One is on page 11 in the legal section, and one is on page 23 in the impacts on neighbors. I have 2 kids, 10 and 6 years old. They're friends with the McIntyres' 3 kids, the Feigenbaums' 2 kids, Kelly and Nathan's kid, and 5 other kids north of the McIntyres. They're at the age where they can walk and ride bikes to each other's houses and to school or to the park or get in all sorts of fun and trouble. We love the canyon, and we love teaching them to be safe and staying out of the way of the cattle trucks and the tractors. We love that they know so many of their neighbors who also keep an eye on them. 41 is also a regular training ground for the Mancos School District sports teams. There's groups of kids running that road all the time, in the spring and the fall especially. We have parents with strollers who regularly walk, people from town regularly walking or running or cycling on a regular basis. I am very grateful that Weber Hall listened to our concerns. They did come to our house, and we appreciated that. That was a big deal. They have made a lot of efforts to mitigate, and I respect that a lot, especially the shuttle for guests. But guests are only one part of a wedding, and I'm still afraid of the traffic associated with all of the vendor and family trips that come outside of that, before and after every wedding and every reception and every community event, twice a week for weddings. The wedding parties, the photographers, the porta potty delivery and pickups, the floral delivery, the caterer's arrival and departure, the servers and bartenders' arrivals and departures, the officiant, the setup and cleanup crews, and the elderly who can't take the shuttle. These are estimated to be a minimum of 25 round trips each event, so 50 vehicles driving by per event day. All this twice a week, all summer long. I really worry for my kids, the students training, the moms and strollers, the walkers, runners, and cyclists. This seems to create an increased risk to the safety of the citizens of Montezuma County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Michonne Olson, and I live at 14050 Road 37 in Mancos. This letter is from Faylee Funk, a neighbor at 6392 Road 41 in Mancos. To whom it may concern, I'm writing to express my support for Weber Hall and the planned micro-weddings. I feel that the owners have made a genuine effort to incorporate all specific and important requests from the county, the community, and the neighbors. Since future guests would consistently be shuttled, to an event, I feel that standards for traffic and safety are being met. I also know that we have a noise ordinance that will be respected. The small weddings at Weber Hall will provide local jobs, income, purpose, and create revenue for the entire community of Mancos. Guests will stay, buy gas, groceries, go out for coffee, lunch, dinner, and shop locally. I also understand that the owners have offered Weber Hall for community events. Thank you for your time. Felicity S. Funk, 6392 Road 41, Mancos. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Nate McIntyre. I live at 7294 Road 41, next to the proposed development with my wife, Jessica, who spoke earlier, and our 3 kids. We moved into the Weber Valley in 2019. We came here to get away from noise, crime, and schools in the city, to live a more peaceful life in a beautiful rural area, and to have the opportunity to restore an old apple orchard. Since we've lived here and gotten to become a part of the community, we appreciate this area for a whole new set of reasons that include being part of an amazing community centered around rural living, agriculture, and wonderful people who share many of the same values that we do. Since we moved here, we've invested substantial amounts of our time and money into our property and our orchard. It's a labor of love, but we intend our farm and orchard to one day be a bigger part of the agricultural economy of the area. We've been working to bring old trees back to health, plant new trees, make our irrigation systems more efficient, and expand our livestock operation. Each year we've lived here, we've sold more apples than the year before. We are by no means an economic powerhouse, but our property is an active agricultural business that will expand in the years to come. Like many agricultural practitioners, we cannot live off the income from our farm. I work Monday through Friday, a 9-to-5 job. My wife has been working at the Mancos school and is looking for more permanent employment in the area. That leaves weekends and evenings for us to work on our orchard. A typical day of farm work might involve weed whacking ditches, chipping wood, chainsawing logs, and other activities that are not compatible with a wedding that's 60 feet away. Furthermore, it's demotivating to know that our hard work and investment is going toward lining the pockets of others who want to degrade my family's safety and quality of life for their own profit. The applicants have already complained to neighbors about barking livestock protection dogs, and once they operate a commercial business, I expect that they will be less tolerant of the sorts of agricultural activities that have been going on here for over 100 years. The proposed mitigations are not adequate and do not sufficiently take into account our current or planned expansion of our agricultural use. The reality, however, is that approving this HIP sets a precedent that commercial development is prioritized ahead of agricultural development in Montezuma County, a county that's been known for its commitment to protecting agricultural heritage, economy, and culture. Ag-res zone property in an active ag area is appropriate for agricultural development and residential development, and should favor those types of developments over commercial development. For these reasons, I ask that you deny the HIP, and thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Lynn Storm at 46001 Road G3 in Mancos, and I will be reading a letter from Celeste Quackenbush at Road 25, 14123 in Dolores. To whom it may concern, I am a flower farmer florist, and unfortunately 98% of my business is out of the county. I would love the chance to have more business opportunities in this county. One of the biggest complaints I get from people in the county who are so desperately looking for a space like this, and they tell me, quote, unfortunately, I have to go to Durango because we don't have anything like this, end quote. Or what we do have, quote, is just not what I'm looking for, end quote. So I think as a small business owner in Montezuma County, we're constantly missing out in this industry. To have something like this and not have to drive hours away and possibly spend the night because I have to do a strike down, this would be so beneficial. I just think that they've thought out so many things, and it's such a good dream. And I think they are trying everything to be so mindful of their community. And I just really hope that this is something that follows through. Thank you. Celeste Quackenbush, 14123 Road 25 in Dolores. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nathan Moore. I live at 20797 US Highway 160 in Durango. This letter is from Amber and Drew from Durango Event Planners at 7581 County Road 203 in Durango. To whom it may concern, I am writing this letter to express my strong support for the permit approval of Weber Hall. As a local event and venue manager for over 7 years, I believe that the space Silvina and Jeremy have created will continue contribute significantly to our local area's economy, vitality, and residents' quality of life. Weber Hall will fill a much-needed gap in the venue options in the Four Corners area. When local and visiting couples are searching for small, intimate space, one with a commitment to sustainability and a meaningful tie to the community and land, there are simply no options. I strongly believe that granting permit approval for Weber Hall will bring numerous benefits to the Montezuma County. It will contribute to the local economy, foster community connections, and provide a platform for showcasing our agricultural and industry talents. I encourage the Montezuma County Planning Commission to carefully consider the value that Weber Hall will bring to our community and support its permit approval. In regards to any objections, I personally manage 2 local venues and have coordinated weddings, rehearsal dinners, fundraisers, and private events at 15+ venues in the Four Corners area. I've been incredibly impressed by the precautionary measures Silvina and Jeremy have taken to mitigate and address concerns raised by neighbors. Venues with great venue contrasts, straightforward rules, and clear expectations rarely have issues with noise, crowding, parking, criminal activity, vandalizing, and more. In fact, venues tend to attract the types of customers they cater to. Laying out guidelines up front allows potential event hosts to decide if the space is right fit for them. Sincerely, Amber and Drew, Durango Event Planners, 7581 County Road 203. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Kelly Pettigen, and I live at 7601 Road 41. It's about a third of a mile north of the proposed venue and right along the direct route of where all the traffic will be. And as most of my neighbors know, we spend an inordinate amount of time biking, walking, and jogging on that road, including my 5-year-old boy who regularly bikes to the McIntyres who are next door. I oppose the venue. We are a community of small business owners, so I absolutely appreciate the amount of work that it takes to get this going, and I appreciate the outreach and the work you've done to try to mitigate these issues, but I just think, unfortunately, it's an agricultural residential area, and nothing is going to change that. I also moved here to start a small business about 15 years ago, and again, I'm like a third of a mile down the road, but my business is a small farm. I didn't buy property in downtown Mancos with the assumption that people in downtown Mancos are going to make way for my farm, so I use agricultural zoned area. I know they're no longer asking for commercial zoning, but I think it's just really skirting the issue. It's going to be a commercial venue on residential land. I do wish them success, and I hope that you can find the appropriate venue because, yeah, it does look lovely. That's all I have to say.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mike Nolan. I live at 410995 County Road G, about a third of the mile to the west. I run a diversified vegetable operation, about 7 acres. I just want to reiterate and kind of clarify a couple of the points previous folks have been in opposition have made, as I am in opposition as well. The sound thing's a really big deal, and I think this last week has really kind of shown it to me, is that we keep our house locked up during the day. Fans on, it's hot, we don't have AC. We're working 14 hours a day, we're coming in at 9 o'clock, 9:30, trying to feel like we have motivation to make dinner, opening up everything, and it's quiet. You can hear everything. The holler that this proposed venue is in acts like a amphitheater. Scotty Cox and Terry Cox and others told me they used to call it Ghost Holler because you can hear everything that happens in that little holler. I can hear Nate and Jess. So that's one of my really, really biggest concerns. But the other thing I want to reiterate is this high impact really feels like commercial zoning to me. This is a commercial operation, and this is not a small change. This would be one of the largest changes to this part of the valley in 100 years. And not only that, but it also can potentially set precedent for the county to approve other venues that might have applications for other rural parts of the Meigs Valley. I also find that the whole Weber Hall thing, personally, to be a little bit disingenuous. I've talked to the Deckers. I chatted with Carl Decker for an hour and a half the other day about this when we were also chatting about water, like we do about 15 times a day. And he's blown away by the fact that it's being compared to this community event space where this is a for-profit commercial operation. It's going to bring tons of traffic, tons of noise. And the noise thing is I get decibel limits, but the thing is, it's the nuisance of it. The nuisance of it is a big thing. And the other thing, too, just to kind of build on some of these other points, is that a few years ago, I had a friend, Tyler Hoyt, apply for a similar thing. He wanted to do 5 weddings this summer on his place just north of town on the highway on 160 or 145. And he was told by then by Planning Commissioner Rob Pope that our system is designed to consider one event at a time and not give blanket high impact permits because it can't be rezoned commercial. And that's kind of a big thing for me. And the other thing that really this brings up for me is that I do a lot of work with Farm Bureau, Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, National Farmers Union and stuff. And I find myself in the Capitol in Denver once or twice in the winter. What I've been fighting there for years is the Front Range telling me what to do. And what I'm finding here based on their support is I've got businesses in Durango, Farmington, Pagosa, Dolores, and Cortez telling me that I need to deal with this to support them. And I find that completely inappropriate and absolutely unfair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Hi. My name is Sharon Kraft. I live at 636 Riverside Avenue. My 3 grandchildren live next to the proposed venue at 7294 Road 41. I'm retired and I frequently walk up 41 past Road H for exercise from my house. And almost every time that I do my walks, I pass someone who is also walking, jogging, bicycling. I wanted to state that I'm going to read a letter from Melinda Bronson, and I wanted to state that I agree with the traffic risks that the following letter brings up. To Montezuma County Commissioners, dear Commissioners, in addition to signing the May 26, 2023 letter being circulated by my neighbors, I would like to offer the following. Having lived at 8385 Road 41 in Mancos for the past 40 years without interruption, I have observed the predictable increase in traffic flow on this county road with growing concern. The road itself is not particularly safe and includes some sharp curves. Some years ago, a vehicle came around one of those curves above my house, apparently too fast, veered off the road and landed upside down right in front of my carport. My son and his friends were camping in our living room just a few feet away. Since then, I've experienced a number of other examples related to the hazardous nature of the road. Any additional traffic would seem to represent an unnecessary risk to me and my neighbors, given that the roadway was never initially constructed to support the kind of load being requested by the above proposal. This is the proposal for the formal objection to HIP 06-2022. I don't believe that all the guests attending these events will be transported by bus. People like to take their own vehicles everywhere, and I don't think we can trust that these drivers will abstain from alcohol while driving up and down County Road 41. Please deny this HIP. Sincerely, Melinda Bronson, 8385 Road 41, Mancos, Colorado. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're a little over an hour and 15 minutes into this, so I'm going to reduce the time now to 2 minutes. I still see a lot of faces out there, and we do have other business to take care of. So now this is 2 minutes. Everybody else for public comment is now 2 minutes.
Yes, my name is Molly Riley, and I live at 260 Buena Vida Avenue in Durango. I would like to finish a letter that someone started, Blythe.
We have all of the letters. You can submit it. We will review them all, so you don't need to read that.
Okay.
You can just submit it to the clerk, and it will
Okay.
become part of the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a letter from Krista Woody. She lives at 13272 Road 28 in Dolores. Hi, I was the realtor who sold Silvina and Jeremy their property, and I am aware of the neighborhood they live in out on Road 41. It is to my understanding that the property they live on does not have an HOA or any covenants on their land, and if they were to get denied this permit, this could set limits on landowner rights in Weber Canyon. There is also no data on whether or not this would affect anyone's property value, and for opposition to say that without evidence is harmful to growth overall. Thank you.
Thank you. You can also submit that. If you all would just leave your letters with the clerk, we also have them. It's recorded, but it's nice to have the documentation with it.
Hi, my name is Catherine Fulton. I live at 39850 Road J in Mancos. I am about 2 miles as the crow flies from the proposed venue. I'm reading a note from an adjacent neighbor, and then I also have some follow-up comments on things that have been said if I have time. This is the note. We want to bring to your attention the fencing surrounding the subject property. The fencing is not adequate to protect from livestock encroachment, provide privacy and separation, prevent event guest encroachment onto neighboring properties, nor is there a barrier from Weber Ditch. There are multiple areas where wire fencing is missing, fence posts are rotten and not structurally sound. Fencing is laying on the ground and barbed wire has become detached from fencing and is jutting out or on the ground. Pictures are in attachment C of the letter provided to you on pages 33 and 34. As land use code reads, threshold standard number 6 for fencing does not meet. This type of land use with high patron counts and vehicles 10 feet from the neighboring agricultural property should require it, as it reads in the land use code in section 5101.4C. Fences shall be constructed that separate the development from adjoining agricultural lands, stock drives, or public roads used as stock drives. With the neighboring agricultural property only 60 feet away from the proposed event, fencing isn't adequate. Okay, thank you. Yes, and I also am a farmer and enjoy the rural lifestyle. My husband and I we've thought of uses for our property. We've had private parties for our place. Our place would make a great event center, probably better than theirs. And we've thought of silly things that we would never do. Okay.
Thank you.
Shoot.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Summers, and I live at 38790 Road K4 in Mancos. I've been a resident of Mancos for 32 years. I am a broker owner of Colorado Ranch and Home Realty based at 145 Grand in Mancos. And when this all came about and I heard all the hubbub, I met with Sylvie. And I wanted to get to know exactly what they were thinking. One of the things that was very concerning to me is she said she'd keep all of the windows and doors closed. Everybody loves Mancos, the outdoors, and having a wedding event closed just didn't make sense. And who would police that? Is it really the neighbor's responsibility to police? And I want to read a letter from me. Currently, the average sales price of homes down Weber Canyon, south of Mancos, is $972,000. As we all know, it's a coveted area due to location, views, wide open spaces, and irrigation. The proposed wedding venue will have a negative effect on neighbors. Neighbors will have to disclose about the commercial activity in the area that causes an increase in traffic and noise. Thus, it will limit the buyer pool for those houses and cause their homes to be sold for less. I used to live 1/8 of a mile at the corner of Road G and 41. Safety is a concern due to the narrow road, no shoulders, and a blind hill at the proposed wedding venue. Currently, people drive an average of 45 to 50 miles per hour down that road. An increase in traffic would have serious consequences. Will the county be putting in wider roads, a turn lane, shoulders? By allowing a high-impact special use permit in an ag residential area, it opens the door, and a pretty slippery one, for others to have different venues to come in front of you. Maybe a pickleball, everybody loves pickleball now, or RV park. Thank you.
Thank you. You can leave your letter also with the clerk.
Hi, Commissioners.
Morning.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Cindy Gray. I live at 6931 Road 41, and I've been a resident of Weber Canyon since 1976. I own that Decker Orchard that you were talking about, okay? Been there a long time. And it is the former Decker homestead. I'm the first non-Decker to own it, and I dearly love it. It's one of the earliest in the area. Nate and Jess have one that's just a little bit newer that was homesteaded by the son of the people who homesteaded my place. I have several concerns from the heart. I'm going to do the best I can here, and I'm sorry, but the aspects of the HIP application have a lot of detailed problems to be confronted and dealt with. But my biggest concern is that if this is passed, there will be significant impacts and threats to our community's treasured rural character and way of life, which everybody else has already detailed. Those of you who know Weber know how beautiful it is. But my really big concern is nowhere in the land use code have I seen where a high impact permit process is meant for anything other than a single event, not multiple events, not open-ended. And what this, to me, actually becomes, if you pass this thing, is a de facto commercial zoning workaround. And that's illegal in this state. So I think you've got to look at it from that aspect. The details are terribly important, but the commercial zoning workaround is not acceptable at all. One of my other questions is, what does this do to their tax status? I know what my tax status is and what theirs should be if it's rural residential. I know what it ought to be if that changes. So that's, this is one of those where the buzzer's not going to go off, because I was supposed to read Carrie's letter and I'm not going to. I am concerned about property values. This will deteriorate our property values, because one of the biggest things that we have going for us is the beauty and the health of our community. And this will not help that. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Come see me.
I'm John Davis. I live at 7031 Road 41. I share a property boundary with 7134 Road 41. First, I'd like to read a letter from Robert and Morgan Shepherd to Montezuma County Commissioners. My family's property is 7020 Road 41. My grandparents bought the land and house in 1950 and raised my father and his two sisters here. It was a wonderful place to grow up. Our family loves the land, and we think it would be a travesty and wrong to build and allow commercial property and activities on and around the natural land, beauty, and peace of this area. We are adamantly against the proposed development at 7134 Road 41 and commercial activities that would be right next door to our family land. Sincerely, Robert Shepard and Morgan Shepard. And for myself, I'd like to say I, my wife, and 11-year-old daughter moved to Mancos area because of the rural feeling, and if you need help, let me know kind of community that it was in July of 1980. And it has remained so over the years for the most part. I don't want the area to go commercial and subsequently open a Pandora's box of future changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Magnuson. I am a resident at 7587 Road 40.3. We're about a mile west of the proposed site. I'm speaking on behalf of many of the neighbors who live in the area. Many of us are very opposed to this event, and many of them are here today. We understand that the Montezuma Board of County Commissioners' goal is to balance the interests of the differing residents in the county. Residents of Montezuma County want to know that property zoning, permitting, and land use rules will protect the value of properties and the welfare and safety of residents by allowing a property in its most appropriate land use given the location and surrounding uses. We request that you deny this applicant in its entirety per the land use code, as this high-impact commercial event venue should not operate on an ag and res zone property. I'd like to add, it's called a high-impact permit for a reason, because it's going to be a very high impact. Should you decide in favor of this applicant, we respectfully request that you consider the following conditions be applied. 1, the owners and applicants should be on site for events held at the proposed venue. 2, no more than 8 events per year with a maximum of 28 people to help preserve the traditional rural character. 3, has been mentioned, fencing gets replaced around the property with a privacy fence that is 6 feet tall and meets fence guidelines in the land use code. It should provide privacy to separate the events from the surrounding rural area, neighboring families, and livestock. 4, car round trip should be limited to 15 round trips per day, as it is for any non-high impact land use. Has mentioned, the road just isn't designed for that amount of traffic above that. 5, alcohol should not be served at this venue. It would feel and sound and look like there's a bar in this rural setting. Events should not be allowed to operate past 7 p.m. as a commercial business. One thing that has not been mentioned, that this is a residential agricultural area that has daily work, school, farm, and ranch schedules, and thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Angela Saylor. I live at 13492 Road 33, Mancos. I have a couple of questions, statements, I guess you could say, from not necessarily living in the area, but just from the town itself. Fahrenheit, ABC, Fence Line Brewery, Chavalos, Columbine, and 2 other places I can think of are now hiring. We don't need more jobs. Right now, where we stand as a town, there are not enough people to work the jobs that are currently needed for the town to function as a town itself. Another issue I have is, where are 60 people gonna park to be shuttled out to this event? Is it just a free-for-all parking downtown? Is there a designated area? Those are a couple of the concerns I have as a citizen of the town, not necessarily as a resident that lived out in Weber Canyon. There are a couple of other things that were stated, that it was a unanimous decision with only half of the commissioners being here. Keeping the windows and doors shut. I lived in that canyon for several years, and like everybody has said before, like, we play this game where we sit on the porch and try and figure out whose neighbor's conversation we were listening to. Another thing is that the pictures that were shown on the slides said that it's hidden, and it's not really hidden if you're driving on the road. And 60 people is a lot. That's a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
My name is Jennifer Magnuson. I'm Jeffrey's wife. I was going to finish the list of conditions should you all approve this.
We have them.
You have them?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have them all listed right here, so.
Okay. Well,
we'll
I'm
have
at
that.
7587 Road 40.3, about a mile northwest, and I also oppose this, and I just want to say, like, are we, the residents of Weber Canyon, expected to sell out our peace and our safety for the economic benefit of people outside the area? Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Doug Carlson, and I don't live in the Weber Canyon area. I live up at Summit Ridge at 15100 Road 35.3. But we live in the beautiful forest, and there are many opportunities for a very similar venue up there, which I would really hate to see happen. I had a long spiel, but everybody's hit most of my points, so I just have a couple of bullet points to go over. Number one, my understanding is this affects the entire county, not just the Weber Canyon neighborhood. It sounds to me like it's a zoning end run, and high impact means high impact. It sets a precedent for other changes in land use code, which, they're working pretty good the way they are right now. It changes the nature of the rural, agricultural, and residential area. It potentially opens the door, in my opinion, for speculative investors to come in and purchase these properties and do the very same thing and not even be a resident of the county. While these folks have taken a lot of precautions, and I think they've addressed a lot of issues, I see incremental creep in how these are enforced, how they're modified over time. Oh, let's do this instead of that. Oh, let's add this. Oh, let's, just all of a sudden push the envelope. So that's great for what they're doing, but more venues, more changes, I think that goes out the window. Everybody's talked about creating traffic and noise. I totally agree with that. So in my opinion, there's more downside than upside. It's benefiting a few at the expense of a many. So I recommend you deny this proposal.
Okay. Seeing nobody else, I'm going to close the public comment session of this hearing, and I am going to bring it back. I'm going to give you the opportunity.
Commissioners, maybe before we go there, I would just like to lay out some of the legal issues, so that way these folks can address them, and then you guys can address them with pertinent questions too, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, so overall, with a high impact permit, you've really got three things you've got to look at. You've got to look at whether the use conforms with the code, whether neighboring properties are adversely affected, and whether utilities are available. I think the big thing you have to hone in on here is whether the use fits with the code. What's been applied for today is a high impact permit and a special use permit. Now, I think that the big question with the special use permit here, and I'm going to go to section 3102.
Excuse me, Ian, it is just a high impact permit. There is no special use permit applied for. Just to clarify.
Well, that certainly gets into an interesting zoning issue as well, and I think that we heard a lot of comments issued today. Given that no special use permit has been applied for, Certainly, a special use permit would allow for conceivably a retreat or a guest ranch. That is under 3102, Section B14. And so that would be something that a special use permit would comply with. But certainly from a zoning standpoint, a high impact permit doesn't necessarily in and of itself erase any sort of zoning requirements. And I think that's my concern here. This is a commercial use. Commercial zoning has not been applied for. And so that I think is something that you guys really have to look at as you assess whether this fits with the code. I mean, this is an agricultural residential property, and when you look at the uses in the land use code, certainly doesn't seem to fit with those uses.
Okay. So I will turn it back over for you to answer some of those questions or comments.
Okay.
And again, pull that.
Yeah.
If
I
you would.
remembered it right after I pushed the button. Yeah, so I guess our first point that we just wanted to reach out to you guys was to see if you had any specific questions to us before we start addressing some of the corrections to the public comment. We initially came in with the full commercial zoning, rezone, everything. And then when we worked with planning and figured out that we're doing a much smaller impact, that this was the route that was best to fitting what we were proposing. So we have met, to our best of ability, all the conditions. Now, some of them we won't always know 100% the answers, but things like the sound test, we took the code, we utilized Cottonwood, who's an independent study, and they did do the surveys from the property lines, or the measurements from the property lines. So I don't know how you prefer to do. Would you prefer to ask your questions of us, or should we just go through and
No, you can,
the
you can
corrections?
go ahead and answer
Okay,
the
then
questions
I'm gonna
if you have those.
Yeah,
We obviously have a
full packet.
a full month's worth of reading here, so it's a little bit daunting to sit here to say we're going to make a decision today, because we now have, like I said, a lot of review to do for ourselves. So go
Okay.
ahead and
All right, well, then I'm
answer
going
your
to
question.
defer to Jeremy, and he's going to kind of take a handful of points.
First, I guess, Mr. McLaren, when you bring up the land use code and the high impact permit, I guess I'm a little confused, because back in December there was the guy who wanted to put some multifamily dwellings down on Road G, and there was a move to deny that application based on the fact that the board didn't want to go against the research and all the work that the planning and zoning department put in, and if they deny that they would stand the chance of not being able to fill those seats if people feel that they have done that work in vain. So I guess I just don't understand, and it seems to me that if we make a decision today that doesn't...
So let me stop you right there. So
Okay.
Mr. McLaren is our attorney. He just advises us. The board is the one that's going to make the decision.
Okay.
So your questions can be directed straight to the board.
Okay.
So we look at the planning, or we look at what planning is submitted to us, what the recommendations are, and then we also look at the code also.
Okay.
And that's how we apply it. The attorney does not make the decisions. I will make that very clear right now. The board of two at this point in time is going to make the decision.
Okay, thank you.
Let me also remind you of something. This board can also revoke high-impact permits, and we have done it in the past.
Absolutely.
So even though something has been approved and went forward, the minute we found out that it was out of compliance, we will revoke a permit.
Right.
Do you understand that?
Absolutely, yeah.
And when it's revoked, you're done.
Yeah.
So every effort, every penny you've ever spent into it, I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that. We can revoke a high-impact permit if it is out of compliance, and we have done it.
Yes.
Okay. With that, go ahead, please.
Okay. Just to clarify some of the points that were made, we do live on site. We'll be there. We might hire people to work with us or for us, but it's our home, you know. People have mentioned the noise a lot, obviously, for valid reasons. One thing that people like to bring up a lot is the term ghost hauler, which is sort of an antiquated kind of legend story based off, it's a cool story of the way that valley shaped, and you can hear out there. But we had a professional sound company come in and take tests, and that's based on data. The venue will be inside, it'll be contained in the house, and we have a buffer of trees around us. When I've been out there when we've had big parties or events, you can't hear it from over near their closest residence. We had our own wedding there, 60 people. We talked to the neighbors about it. Surprisingly, they never heard it at all. They've mentioned to us that they didn't notice it was going on. I understand that that's only a one-off time, and this will be constant. But we have done the due diligence to try and make sure that you're not going to be able to hear. Or if you can, it was 34, the average of 35 at the property line was the decibel reading. So, and we're going to keep on top of that too. We're going to make sure that our decibels will always stay that way. Also, it was mentioned that a lot of the people we have reading our letters of support were from Durango, but a lot of the people that wrote those letters were from this area. And just because they weren't here today, I don't think that should mean that their statement shouldn't matter. It's a weekday. It's hard for people to make it. So fortunately, they were able to send those letters of support, and fortunately, there were people here to read them. We also wanted to say that the shuttle it's not an option. Like, it's not like you can choose to drive or take the shuttle. Like, when we need to have the shuttle, because there's too many people, they're going to be required to take that shuttle. And always, if there's drinking at the events, they will be required to take the shuttle.
So I'm gonna ask a question right there, please. Where is that shuttle going to pick up and drop off? Because that really wasn't identified. That was one of the questions. So where is that at?
Yeah, absolutely.
They have to be kind of one at a time.
Yeah, so we have talked to several landowners in town about leasing that space for parking, because we understand we do not want to overwhelm the town with just a free-for-all parking situation. We also plan on working with the local businesses in the area to see if we can pick up, for example, maybe at El Rio or maybe at the motel if enough guests are staying there. So it'll all be planned beforehand. We're not going to have events until we establish those parameters, because we understand that there's already limited parking in Mancos as it is.
Have you spoken with the town of Mancos itself?
They know about this application. We've spoken to a couple members, not officially, because I think they want to keep this in the county's jurisdiction and not necessarily like have a say in it, to step over, you guys' responsibilities. But we have spoken to several people from the town.
So right now, it's just the motels, or not a 100% designated area at this time?
Not at this time, but we have talked to the lot in front of the bakery, like the owner of that, and we've seen multiple lots that we could contact. But again, we didn't want to put the cart in front of the horse, until we have something substantial to talk to them with. But we do intend on doing that before anything is in operations. Like, we are not booking weddings for this year. People book way in advance.
Sure.
And they're used to a very lengthy contract. And we're ready to be as detailed as possible and work with lawyers to make sure we've covered everything.
Okay. So sorry, Mr. Moore, go ahead. Okay.
I just want to add something, improv. I really hope that our neighbors and us can eventually mend this relationship. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot in November, and I'm sorry to all of you that we did not go door to door and spoke to you in person first. I think it really set the stage for a relationship that I just don't want. I really hope that they can see that we are ready to, they can have our cell phone numbers. If they hear anything, I will go over there and I will lower it myself. I will not let it be this echoing music down this valley. We are not clubbing people. We are way beyond that age. We don't want to be that for any of them. And I just hope that they will give us a chance if this goes through, and if it doesn't go through, I hope we can still mend the relationship.
I guess I just have one quick question. I mean, this certainly feels like a commercial use in every sense of the word. I mean, this is a commercial wedding venue. Would you guys agree with that? I mean, is the primary use of this property going to be commercial?
I would say it's a secondary use. I mean, the primary use is our home. But yeah, it's a commercial endeavor, as our neighbors have commercial endeavors too. And, you know, I guess I'm not sure. I guess the purpose of the land use code is to designate who gets to have commercial endeavors out there, right? I mean, if it's an agricultural zone, then only agricultural zones get. But I just feel that what we're trying to do is kind of a tricky, it's a unique thing, because like when you look at that, I forget what section it is, it's in 33, under all the designated uses or that for commercial uses, right? Like we're not in that. It's like, I don't know what we would be categorized under, but it's a barn, you know, it's an event venue to be out in an agricultural setting, and these types of barns exist in other counties. So I don't know the specifics of how, you know, what category we fall under. But yes, it's a commercial endeavor.
So, commissioners, I don't know what you guys want to do with this. I mean, I would just go to.
I think that right now, in my opinion right now, like I said, I don't like to make a decision until I've reviewed everything, and obviously today we have been given an entire packet to review. So at this point in time, I don't have any other questions until I review this packet. I would almost move that we continue this for 2 weeks to give us time to do our review, and to again review all of the letters, everything that's been put in front of us. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I would move that we continue this public hearing until the August 1st, I believe.
Commissioner Candelaria?
August 1st.
Planning can add their comments if you continue this, or I can give you the background because you were not aware of anything previous that went to P&Z.
We are not, and you can give that to us, but.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay, well then, we will go ahead and vote on that. So it has been moved and seconded to continue this public hearing to August 1st. And I don't know what your schedule, if you already have anything on that date. 9 a.m.?
Okay.
Okay, we'll move it to 9 a.m. on August 1st, so that we have time to do our review of the packets that have been submitted.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all. Do I close it? Okay, and then I will also close this public portion of this hearing. It's a continuation. It's a continuation. So, it's closed. No, you can come and watch it. Yeah. Correct. You bet. Okay, we're going to take about a 3-minute recess here, and then we'll get back to our regular scheduled meeting.
This chair's
All right.
for me.
Back to our regularly scheduled meeting, and next on our agenda, we have a resolution for a bond reamortization for SHS, and we have MCHD's attorney and chairman of the board here with us.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. So as we previously discussed, and I believe we supplied you all the documents, there is a planned reamortization of the 2016 bonds in which the Montezuma County was a conduit issuer of, with the purpose of freeing up money to allow for facility upgrades at the hospital campus in which the Montezuma County Hospital District owns. And have you all had the opportunity to review the first supplemental indenture of trust? And I guess, I'm sure you've funneled all questions already through your counsel, but is there anything that the commission would need from us to analyze whether or not they are in a position to make a motion to give you the proper authority to execute those?
Question from either one of you.
Well, I've looked through them and I can't see anything in there that would.
And this is really just changing the date of the first indenture that you guys did. And the county's not gonna be on the hook for anything
Correct.
here. And so that's the key piece to understand. We're simply the conduit that's authorizing the indenture. And so that's the piece here. We're not on the hook. These documents reflect that.
Correct.
And I have no questions either. So,
I would so move that we authorize and accept the indenture as presented from Montezuma County Hospital District between Montezuma County Hospital District and Zions Bank. And is that sufficient?
it's a resolution.
We
Do
have a
we have the
resolution.
number, Kim?
Yep.
Yeah. As stated in Resolution 14, 2023.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept resolution number 14, 2023, a resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of the first supplementary indenture of trust. Any further questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And this will take all three signatures.
That's all we need. Thank you.
All right.
Your
Should
time.
have done you first.
Well, thank you all.
I guess that's all part of it, right?
Yeah, it should be.
I popped something, a clip fell off. There it is. Dadgummit.
So you guys got the two, okay, yep.
That one.
Dang, you got a liquor license?
Okay, next up, Sheriff. We have, we're going to talk about a resolution for a fire ban today. Good morning. That's,
Well, maybe you could hear me before, but now it's being recorded.
well, I think we could hear you, but maybe nobody else could.
And of course, it's all wore out, still not connecting. Anyway, I had a meeting with the area BLM, Forest Service, and district firefighters last Monday. That's when BLM put in their stage 1 fire restrictions for BLM land, which is actually historic because they're always neither due or way behind everybody. So they were first. I was shocked. So Forest Service implemented their stage 1 fire restrictions on Thursday. in talking with every one of the fire chiefs and the fire districts here in Montezuma County, therefore implementing the fire ban in Montezuma County. We've already had several fires already. There were actually 427 controlled burns called in the month of June. That's quite a bit. So, but our conditions right now with the weather, everything's drying out too fast. And at higher elevations, it's not as bad. That's why the Forest Service has an elevation limit for their Fire 1 or their Stage 1 fire restrictions. We unfortunately don't have that here in Montezuma County. It's a little hard. We've discussed this over the years about changing that to where it could be by fire district or, I mean, elevate. It just doesn't work because nobody will know, okay? Most people don't even know which fire district that they live in, and it makes it really difficult. So it's all or nothing. And I know that there's a substantial amount of private land in unincorporated Montezuma County that is within public land as well, and this will affect that. So, but there's already fire restrictions across the fence on the public lands. So, it's up to you.
Yeah, there was.
It's recommended.
Yeah.
You guys good? I move we approve resolution number 15, 2023, reinstating the fire ban in Montezuma County.
Second. Effective immediately?
It's
July
effective
19th.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
6
Tomorrow
a.m.
morning at
Okay.
6 a.m.
Yeah, you should give it some time.
So it's been moved and seconded to accept resolution number 15, 2023, reinstating the fire ban for Montezuma County, and it will become effective 6 a.m. tomorrow, July 19th, 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. We'll get the information out. At what time was it tomorrow?
6 a.m.
6 a.m.?
6 a.m.
All right, thank you. For the month of June, we had 1,734 calls for service that month that was sent to you in the sheriff's report. High numbers continually. One of the big things is livestock. We've had more livestock running at large and whatnot that we generally don't, but a lot of it is fence problems. But other than that, we're doing pretty good. We had 2 violations last month of controlled burning within red flag or high wind warning day. They just never called in. But this will actually help. The fire ban will actually help a little bit. Any questions about our calls for service?
On those that was burning on a red flag day, were they fined, summoned, given a warning?
They were cited, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the way that it's got to be. I mean, everybody knows about it now, or should. As far as the fire ban, I do not plan on issuing any exemption permits, except on just depends on what the situation is and what it is. It's just too dangerous. Our volunteer fire departments are already responding to calls several times a week, if not more, and that's on top. Fire calls are on top of the medical calls that they have to respond to. So this is actually going to help, and hope that we can get some moisture within the next 30 to 60 days, and hey, maybe we'll be sitting pretty good. I don't know. It's a hope, all right? A wish.
I looked this morning and forecast for zone 207 is ticking up as far as chance of wetting rains at 10%, but the lightning activity level is notched up.
That's the problem with the storms that may be coming, is lightning.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have fire.
It doesn't read our fire ban.
Yeah, I know, right? God doesn't pay attention, what can I say? But hey, in the jail report, you see the month of June, we had 12 adults and 2 juveniles transported. Total mileage 6,665. Per diem and hotel costs during those transports of a number of 18 deputies, mainly because of the juvenile transports that were needed in a court hearing. That will also have to happen at the end of this month. There will be the sentencing that will be going on with that juvenile. So we're probably looking at about the same amount. Bless you, sorry. So our total anyway is $2,752.77 as of the end of June. Also included in here, we have applied for restitution for these transports, and the amount of $34,115.74 since January 1. We shall see whether or not we receive any.
What's the rate for that restitution for mileage, Steve? What are you
It's the
using?
cost of the per diem, the hotel, and the transports and everything. Yeah, it's all encompassing.
Okay.
The hours.
We just upped our.
What's that?
We just upped our cost on our reimbursement on mileage.
Right.
Do you follow that guideline?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the only thing that we can do. We are getting reimbursed for juvenile transports from DYC. That's the only thing that we've had so far. But there's in hopes that it looks like we're going to be able to get a good percentage of this returned back to the county. So we're trying.
A good percentage is what?
Of the $34,115.74.
Well, what's the percentage, do you think?
Yeah. All we
Do you
can
think
do
we'll
is
get it all?
ask for it. We should. I really anticipate that we will, mainly because of all of the judicial requirements to transport these people back and appear in court and whatnot. So it's a good shot. We'll see. Cost of restitution, as far as our criminal cases and whatnot, sometimes it's maybe about a third is what we'll get over the year, because most people don't have anything anyway. So it's like, I mean, I've got drug cases that we're still receiving funding on from 10 years ago.
I guess where I'm heading with this, my point is for the public to understand that we, property owners in Montezuma County, are paying for this.
Of course. Yep.
We're paying the lion's share of this whole thing.
Yep.
And I know that it doesn't sound very Republican to talk about a sales tax, but at some point in time, we have to pass these costs onto
But it also.
onto the people that are creating them.
Yeah.
And right now, if we get 50%, if we get a third of that, it's just not, it's not sustainable, it's not viable, and that's what we've been doing over and over and over.
Like Jim says,
Well,
we
when
pay
you get-
for it more than one way. We pay for it directly in mileage, and per diems and all that, but also our insurance rates go up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we
Every
just
single year.
continue to pay for everything over and over and over.
Yep. And unfortunately, when you see the costs at the end of the reports that I always give, all right, it's always the lion's share that we're not reimbursed of.
Yeah.
I mean, $200,000 a month.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's at $100 a day per inmate. Okay, that's where those figures come from.
Oh, trust me, we get it.
I know.
We get
And
it.
it's like,
It's the general
well,
public
you
needs
know
to
what?
understand that what it's costing them.
The state is the one that required us to have a detention center. So if you can get that changed, we can send them all to Durango or somewhere else, which is fine with me, and I think for all of us. But I don't see that happening. Just to give you, we have 67 inmates as of this morning at 8 o'clock, with 5 of those awaiting transfer to DOC. This is the arrest and release for the month of June from each day, from the 1st to the 30th. And you can see we had 140 arrests and 157 releases. It's in and out constantly. The total jail capacity on each one of those days, highest is 87, I think. So we're actually reducing and keeping ahead of a lot of this, and that is working with the courts as well has also helped keep those costs down. For reimbursement costs for the city of Cortez, the month of June, with 63 days, that's $6,300. They have been invoiced or billed. For Dolores County, 69 days, $6,900. Right now, they only have one inmate. But I don't know how long that inmate will probably be there for quite some time. That's on felony charges. Department of Corrections, total of 52 days, they were billed $5,200. So here is our operational costs and expenses for the month of June. As you see, $227,300. It's not reimbursable, but that's using the figure that we have for total inmates. And for monies that were received to the general fund through the treasurer's office for the month of June, you can see how we have a total of $24,798.68. And for the grants and whatnot for being reimbursed, $192,093.34. Any questions?
No.
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Rather interesting this morning.
Thanks for your patience.
Have a good day.
Good luck. Yeah, I've got, things are stacking up, so. And also, just to let you know, the coroner will not be here. He was called away at a death investigation that we have ongoing right now. So, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. All right, Mr. Disaster is up next.
Deadly disaster.
Master of Disaster.
That's it, Dr. D. Just call me
did,
Dr. D.
We did approve your request for wherever it was at.
Oh, you did approve it?
Yeah, we approved it.
Yeah.
But you missed the flight, so
Well, inflation went up since May,
I
so,
guess it's-
but I'm happy.
I
Yeah.
guess it's disapproved.
I thought you were gonna say it's a one-way flight.
Yeah, might be. Maybe I ought to be careful. So, good morning, Commissioners.
Good
Morning, Ms.
morning.
Kim, Ian, Mr. Anderson. So, yeah, everything's wonderful in emergency management. The report's online, as always. You have a copy of it. You've all read it. There's very little in it.
Basically says it's hot.
Yeah, it's hot. That's
Dry.
pretty much what the report said.
Hot, dry, and windy.
It's hot. And next Thursday, not this Thursday, next Thursday, we're looking at 5 days of moisture here and there and everywhere with the dry lightning and regular lightning. But yeah, so with that, I will begin with, I encourage the public, one, to sign up for emergency messaging, period. It's really easy. You text to 888-777, and you put your zip code in, and then when I need to send something out, or the force, or the National Weather Service will send you kind of the updates on red flag days and all that stuff, including evacuations, reentries, whatever we need in case there is a fire. Very important to have, because the sheriff's department's going to go door to door, firemen are going to go door to door, but there may be a point where we can't. So I really encourage everybody to get on my website, which is my web page under services, the counties. You click on services, you go down, you'll see Office of Emergency Management, and in there I have links to just about everything. I encourage everybody, I have this monthly report, it's posted right now. All the reports are in there. I encourage, there's after action reports on the water runoff issue that we had. So that's in there, including after action report on COVID. My plans are in there, our plans are in there that you approved, the emergency ops plans. So everything, especially the alert and warning plan is in there. It tells you how we alert and how we warn people with get ready, get set, go. And then kind of how the reentry plan works once we evacuate, et cetera, et cetera. So I really encourage people to go on that website and just browse around. There's a lot of information on there. Monthly report, it's hot. So the fire indices came in today, and they're similar. They're starting to go from extreme to very high, so that's nice. But humidities are still low, single digit here and there. Plenty of water. Grant programs. So just to highlight, FEMA did get back with us on the generator grant for $170,000 plus or minus. And they had a couple questions, which they didn't read the 47 documents that I sent in to apply for the grant. So I told them to go read those documents, and I also gave them some other documents. And the state wasn't too happy with FEMA. But anyway, we've pretty much been approved. We're just getting all these little questions answered. So that's moving along pretty good. Then just the highlight, search and rescue has a few things when they went on the search on June 25th up in Echo Basin, Hesperus Peak area. So that's in there. Just kind of the findings of that. Training and exercise, pretty much finally after 15 different, trying to, we have that plan of gaps and capabilities. So some of our gaps was in training, of course, equipment, planning, training, exercise. So we did a lot of training for the first 6 months. So this last month of June, we just had an after-action review. Fire ops plan, we reviewed that as well with the EOC staff, so we had our training, and that's about it. It's been great, kind of catching up on paperwork. EMPG, I'm gonna submit it today, so it's another 23,000. So for the first quarter's around 23, second quarter's 23. Of course, they're not gonna pay us, 80,000 at the end of the year, but I'm submitting 23 for sure, and then they get half. So that's going in. First quarter is still looking at it for the MPG grant. So that's it. Short and sweet. Lunchtime.
Staffing?
Huh?
Got lots of staffing?
Yeah. My crew, my staff, they're hard to handle. But yeah, me and my staff.
Vicki, you need to be a little bit kinder.
Vicky's the easy one. It's that Spratling guy is hard to handle. Just, the whole world revolves around him. What can I say? That's it,
All right,
gentlemen.
thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and can I get a copy of the resolution on the fire ban, please? Put that in my file. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving
Thank
right
you.
along to unfinished business. Yesterday in our workshop, we had a discussion with Road and Bridge. We have an agreement for Road 31 or Forest Service Road 526. This is basically with the Forest Service. They have allocated $74,000, almost $75,000 to do some patchwork on 526, and the county will do it. And we will put as much asphalt on that road as we possibly can to patch all of the holes. With that, Commissioner?
I move we approve this road project agreement between Montezuma County and the U.S. Forest Service number 23-RO-11021-300-041.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the road project agreement between Montezuma County government and the USDA Forest Service San Juan National Forest Service. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, secondly, we had another one as it relates to material out of Ormiston and the new Beaver Rim Pit for the product of 25,000 tons, 15 out of one, 10 out of the other, in the agreement of $150,000. This also was discussed in detail at our workshop yesterday.
I move to approve this challenge cost share agreement between Montezuma County and the USDA Forest Service, San Juan National Forest, number 23-CS-11021300-040.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the challenge cost share agreement between Montezuma County and the USDA Forest Service, San Juan National Forest, agreement number 23-CS-11021300-040. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We did not discuss a flag to be placed at the fairgrounds. Nobody showed up. We will not be making a decision on that today. And now we will go to our grants coordinator, Robert Dobry.
He's getting to be quite a regular.
We didn't do any public comment.
We can do it now. It's all on the agenda under 9, and we should, so.
Sorry. I did not.
Commissioner, it might make sense to open it up even now, or I don't know.
Okay. Well, since I think our whole crowd has left, but I apologize. I did miss our public comment session after our public comment session for a specific application. So I will reopen that up before I go to your report, Robert. Do we have any public comments? Okay. With that, then the Board of County Commissioners welcomes you to this meeting. Person speaking during public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, or depending on the number of people wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all the members of the public the opportunity to address the board. When addressing the board, please state your name and address for the record prior to providing your comments. Your comments to individual supervisors or staff are not permitted, and participants may not yield their time, and with that, the public comment session is open.
Good morning. I just wanted to say thank you to some of the individuals that have publicly supported our youth, the 4-H and the FFA. We greatly appreciate everything you do for our youth, and we hope to continue your support or receive your support. So thank you very much.
And name and address, just for the record.
Lynette Scholl, 27590 Road, R, Dolores, Colorado. And I've been associated with the 4-H for about 55 years, I counted, and with the FFA for about 48 years. We appreciate your help. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, with that, I'll close the public comment session, and I'll jump right back to Mr. Dobry and your report.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So I have a few things to report back to you. On the Fairgrounds Solar Energy Impact Grant, Commissioner Candelaria and I traveled to Denver to present that about 3 weeks ago. The presentation went well. After talking with Patrick Rondinelli from DOLA afterwards and following up, it sounds pretty positive. I expect to hear either today or later this week at the latest on that. Also, in relation to that, the IRS released their guidance on direct pay of solar tax credits to local governments, and we will qualify for the entire match portion of that project and be able to submit reimbursement for that in the tax year when the project goes into service. So that should cover our match piece of that, the 25% that the county was putting up. On congressionally directed spending requests that we put in, I heard from both Senator Hickenlooper and Bennett's offices that the $50,000 project for access control at public safety radio antenna sites throughout the county has been approved through the Senate committee and is in the draft funding bill. We should know closer to the end of the year as the bill moves through Congress on the final disposition of that if it is included in the federal budget. Our noxious weed project that we also submitted did not move forward. Last week, I presented the $25,000 BLM Good Neighbor Authority grant, submitted that, so that's in. Haven't heard anything back from them yet, but we're moving through that process. I'm also supporting, you heard from Emergency Manager Spratlin about the FEMA grant. I'm supporting and helping him with that, making sure that we provide all the information to make sure we're dotting I's and crossing T's, and that we get that money to be able to put generators at, I think it's 4 county sites. And then also last week, I attended the Infrastructure Development Summit in Durango, which was hosted by DOLA, the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. And as part of that, it was sort of a fire hose of grant information. So I'm researching, there's dozens of upcoming infrastructure and energy grant projects that we could potentially qualify for from both the state and federal governments. I'm focusing on road and bridge infrastructure, energy efficiency upgrades to county facilities that could save ongoing energy costs, kind of similar to the Fairgrounds project, as well as programs that can help fund our existing operations like noxious weed program. And I'm continuing to support the fiber internet grant writing process. I think that's about all I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Oh, sounds good.
Sounds good. Hopefully, we'll get something done on that fairgrounds grant. I just got an email from Kentar, so we'll be able to respond to that here shortly.
Okay.
All right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. County Attorney, Mr. McLaren.
We received our first check from Ironwood earlier this week. It was for $7,200. There's some confusion as to how they arrived at that number, but we'll get it straightened out and make sure that number is correct. At this point, the fining schedule is $5,000 for the month of June, and then it would be $2,500 total for each week of noncompliance after that for the rest of the month of July, and that money would be split evenly between CDPHE and the county. And so we got our $5,000. I'm not exactly sure how we ended up at $7,200. It doesn't quite add up, but we'll get it straightened out.
State math.
Yeah. So, but we did get that. I received a response to the motion for summary judgment that I filed. That response in the Ellis Lewis case, that response was filed last Friday, so I have a week to respond to that. I'll be working on that response extensively this week. Other than that, I don't have anything to report. Oh, I do have one other thing. We are moving through the discovery process in the jailhouse death involving Kelroy Newman. And so I've been putting some work into that this week, getting the insurance company everything that they need to move forward with their defense of that case.
Okay, thank you. Questions for any?
No.
All right, Mr. Anderson.
So we're working budget proposals this week. That's going to take up most of our mornings and afternoons, just depending upon the day. It'll go into next week. There was some confusion on the accident pool forms. I think Lynn may have sent a draft copy. We'll get that back on the agenda in front of the commissioners. We made some changes to the sick leave pool form so that everybody's kind of on the same page and the processes are moving forward. And then you gentlemen should have got some information this morning that I sent out as related to the data that was requested. So hopefully you gentlemen can look at that. And that's pretty much it for other than it's just been a really busy week.
Okay, to my right.
All right. Last Tuesday, I did attend the city council meeting. They renewed quite a few liquor licenses and recognized now former P&Z person, and went over some financial statements, went into executive session, and that lasted quite a while, so I went home and picked the rest of it up on YouTube, and they authorized the permit to establish a spray liner operation at the location of Jimmy's Transmission, and rezoning of property located at 10206 Highway 491 from commercial to industrial, and also did some government obligation with some banks, and that was about the size of it. City manager had a good report. He paid me to say that. And yesterday, we had a really good work session. I would encourage everybody that's interested in what's going on probably with the hospital to go back and look at that on YouTube and see some of the questions and answers. And hopefully that will help alleviate some questions. There's still a lot out there, but we're working on it. So. And that's the end of my report. Oh, it's hot and dry. Don't start no fires.
Don't play with matches.
Oh, man.
Commissioner Copenaper.
This last week, I spent Wednesday and Thursday in Telluride with a meeting for Southwest Water Conservation District. We had I don't know if people have been up there to Mountain Village in recent years. I hadn't been there in a long, long time.
It's
It definitely has changed tremendously, and even in the summertime, there are so many people there that it was unreal. Couldn't find a place to park. So it was a very good meeting, though. There's quite a bit of issues still going on with, as far as the Colorado River. Our task force, not sure, they were some deadlines they were supposed to meet, and they haven't met those deadlines. So I'm not sure when we're going to start meeting with that. We were supposed to have the first meeting before the end of July, but they haven't even named a chairman of that group yet. So somebody's fallen behind on their part with the state, but we'll see what happens in the next week or so. But, so I missed the Mancos meeting because I was in Telluride that night, so. Other than that, just phone calls and different conversations with some people around the county, so.
Okay. Well, you were dealing with water and I was dealing with fire. So, was at the Colorado Fire Commission meeting. I did not go to Steamboat Springs. I chose to do this one via Zoom, which was very difficult to have any dialogue just because of the regurgitation of the sound throughout that. But anyway, one of the goals that they have really decided, we have really decided to do, and it was kind of even mentioned last week by the Forest Service, there are a lot of resources that we have here in this community right now. If you've been down at the airport lately, go down there and look at the helicopter, look at the crews that are staged down there. If there is any fire in here, the resources are here immediately. We can dispatch them and get these fires out quickly as they are still small before they get into anything that's going to be a catastrophic event. One of the big discussion points was prescribed fire burn. There's a whole proposal that's going to be implemented on that, and then on August 4th, we will be going back to all of the commissioners of the state through CCI and talking about, you know, what the Fire Commission is doing throughout the state and how it relates to each and every 64 counties. We, again, with, on Friday, then CCI, we had a Zoom call. We went over the 2024 proposed issue discussion for the legislative session. Every county gets to propose what they want to have as a priority, and then later on in the year, typically October, we will identify 8 to 10 of those, and that's what our CCI staff will take forward, and that's what we'll be discussing in the legislature for the 2024. We had, again, like Commissioner Lindsay stated, we had a great discussion yesterday with all three boards, SHS, MCHD, the Board of County Commissioners, that relates to the future of moving Southwest forward. Let's see, took care of a few items as far as it related to the Forest Service, and we're all able to meet our new district attorney, Christian Hatfield, yesterday. And it sounds like they are moving their docket forward just as quickly as possible, which is very much appreciated. And with that, that is all that I have.
I have one other thing. There was a complaint filed for a couple of environmental groups on a timber sale up on the boggy. And, well, I don't understand why. They were participated in all the meetings and everything, and we thought this sale was gonna go through, and now it's stalled. So if you know any of these people, tell them, ask them why that complaint was filed. Because we need, it's real evident in these forests, we need these forests thinned, and we need a lot of management on our forests, and that includes fire, grazing, the whole ball of wax. So if you see them, ask them.
Okay,
That's all I have.
all right. Commissioner, either one of you like to move our adjournment?
Oh, go ahead, Gerald, it's your turn. Shit.
I move we adjourn.
Uh-oh, I apologize. That would. Second.
Been moved and seconded, we adjourn this July 18th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.